Hey everybody, this is Faint, and I'm going to show you how to set up your flight controls if you have the Saitek X52 Pro, Joystick, and rudder pedals you may or may not have. I'll show you how to set that up as well. You hit Escape, you go into Configure, and then you go into Game, and you see which helicopter flight model you're using. For this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to set up the Advanced. Then go to Controls. First thing you want to do is set up your cyclic. The cyclic is the joystick side of your X52. So for me, I have it set so that cyclic forward is pushing forward. You might have noticed I also have mouse down set up as part of my controls. I use the mouse and the joystick and throttle when I'm flying helicopter. The mouse gives you a lot of control, so I'll go through that as well. Cyclic backwards, it's simply pulling back on the stick. It's also mouse up. For cyclic left, you push left on the stick, which is also mouse right, so it's kind of the opposite of what you would think. And for cyclic right, it is pulling right on the joystick and mouse left. Now, since I'm using the advanced flight model, I do not have anything set up for this kind of digital collective. This is kind of like the digital collective, and down here is the analog, which is the English spelling of it. Now, you will know if you have your collective set to the wrong input by right away when you try and fly the helicopter, because you'll be bouncing up and down pretty harshly. So let me just go ahead and set this incorrectly, and we'll see what it looks like. So collective raise, I'll set to throttle forward, and collective lower, I will set to throttle backwards. And I'll remove that from the analog controls. Alright, now I'm moving the collective forward. I'm about 50%. And the helicopter jumps right forward. Now I'm going to pull the collective backwards, and it goes to 0. Forwards past 50% goes to 100. Below 50% goes to 0. And so if your helicopter is bouncing up and down like that, that's why. In my previous video, one of the things I had set up was if you go to your collective raise, you can put the minus first and then the plus right after it in the same control, and then leave collective lower analog blank. Now I've tried doing this, and I only get I'm only using 50% of the input, and I'll show you. So that's at 0 collective, or 0 throttle. The throttle's all the way back towards my chest, and now I'm moving it forward. And when I get to about 40 or 50% of the throttle, it starts to move. So I can control this side of the collective, but not the bottom side, not the anything below 50%. So that was a good trick, and that still is a good trick if you're using the standard flight model. But if you're using the advanced flight model, unfortunately, it just doesn't work. But that's fine, because we don't need to do that trick anymore. For the pedals, if you are new to using rudder pedals, you might have set it up so that when you push left on the pedal, the aircraft will rotate to the right, and that kind of feels normal. That's kind of feels like how it should be, but that's wrong. So compared to real life, so in real life, when you push on the left pedal, the aircraft rotates to the left. So that's how I have it set up. And to do that, you just click on here, and you push left on your pedal, and it shows right up. And you do the same for the right pedal. So for manual trim set, I actually have one of my POVs set up, because I don't use the POVs since I'm using TrackIR. So I just use these POV switches for other settings. So it's just pulling down on one of the POV switches is how I set up manual trim. Now, if you want to make your life easier, especially if you're starting out, go over to Game where it says Auto Trim and click Enabled. If you're just learning how to fly helicopters, the trim is probably one of the most difficult things to deal with. If you still want to give yourself a challenge, and you don't want to feel like you're cheating too much, keep wind effects also enabled, because then if there's any wind in the game, that'll blow the helicopter around. So it's still definitely a challenge to fly around. But flying around with wind and with trim is definitely for more advanced pilots. So I've turned auto trim on just to make my life just a little bit easier until I get used to this advanced flight model. I've also turned off stress damage because I found that if you do some crazy maneuvers, you can damage the aircraft, and it's just not fun. And you know, really, I'm playing this game because I want it to be fun, and I don't need it to be hyper realistic. So there's that. Now, the next, probably one of the most important things you can do is if you go back to your main menu and go back to controls, go to your controller settings. And if you click on this X52 Pro Flight controller, that will allow you to customize the inputs for the different throttle and joystick. If you move the inputs, you can actually get them to light up, which is really nice and really helps you find out what does what. One of the first things I did was I removed the dead zones from the throttle, which is right here. I also reduced the sensitivity down to almost nothing. I had it set up here for a little while, but I didn't like it, and I had it set here, and now I'm still getting used to it. So I'm still playing around with where exactly I want that to be. And let me show you what a difference that makes. You can see as I move the throttle up and down that it shows you kind of how the throttle is interacting in the game world. Now this is a very useful thing because as you see there's a line here, there's a middle line right there, and then there's another line right there. Now if I move my hand just a little bit, I get to this point very quickly. And if I move a lot, I slowly go through this middle part. And then the last like 10% of travel on my throttle will complete this top part. So let me just show you how it looks differently if you change the sensitivity. And here's the sensitivity. The Z-axis is what we're changing. That's your throttle. So I'm going to bump that all the way up, max it out. So now, when I move just a little bit, I pound right through that little sweet spot on the collective. 40%, 50 to 55. So this is like maybe 45 to 55% of the travel, maybe even less than that. It's probably like 47 to 53% of the travel is taking up this entire space. Now when you turn that sensitivity down to 0, I would say probably like 10 to 20% to maybe 80 to 90% is taken up in this sweet spot in here. So I'm going to slowly raise the collective, and boom, I'm off the ground like nothing. So I'm going to try to lower my collective very gently so I can softly land, and it's almost impossible. So that is very difficult to control. So now I'm going to go back to configure, go to controls, go to controller, go to your Pro Flight controller and hit customize again. And I'll lower this down all the way down to where I had it, which is almost no sensitivity, or 0 on here. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, and hit continue. So now if I pull way back on my collective, you can see that I have much more control. So now I can get very close to the ground, almost touching the ground. Touch the ground slightly, I can move up a little bit. I can get it so that I'm just floating over the ground. I'm about an inch off the ground. I might even be touching the ground at this point. So yeah, I'm about as close as you can get before you're touching the ground. So really the choice is yours as to how much sensitivity you want to have on your collective. You can do the same sort of sensitivity for your joystick, left and right, and forward and backward. Now I'm going to hit hard right, like I'm going to go full all the way to the right now. and hold it. So it took a little bit of time for the aircraft to react, and it didn't move that quickly. So I'm going to get a little more altitude, and I'm going to affect the left and right axis only for now. So I'm going to ramp that all the way up, and we're going to have a heck of a ride. So I'm going to move the joystick just a little bit to the left now. So there you go. Now I've moved it about 10 degrees off the vertical axis. So 10 degrees right, and the aircraft moves very quickly. But as you can see, I'm having a little bit of trouble just getting the aircraft to go straight up and down. So I'm going to try and center it so it's straight up and down exactly, and it's very difficult to do. I almost have to rattle the stick to get it so that it's straight up and down. So that is a pain in the butt also. So really you have to set it so that it is a compromise. I'm going to go about 10 degrees left on the joystick, and the aircraft barely banks. So if I go over to these buildings over here, alright, so I'm just using the joystick now. Alright, so maybe I needed to be a little more sensitive. I had the joystick all the way banked over to the left, and I still wasn't moving left. Alright, so left-right axis is this one. Let's change that, and we'll change this one as well. We'll cut it down just a little bit. Alright, so where's that building? Here it is. So I don't need to do... Woo! Alright, here we go. So it's still not quite as sensitive as I would want it to be, but it's better. Now, I recently flew an actual helicopter. I got a training class as a gift for my birthday, and I can tell you that moving the cyclic in this helicopter, just a very slight amount would move the helicopter. It wasn't like if I moved the cyclic a lot, the helicopter would move a lot, but it was just so tied into the controls that if you just slightly moved, you were definitely going to pitch forward or backwards or left or right. And it took a lot of concentration and effort to keep that cyclic exactly where it needed to be in order to keep the aircraft moving where I wanted it to go. So now when I'm flying in Arma, that's one of the things that I keep trying to replicate, that sort of sensitivity, but without that over control. And it's probably hard to do with a Saitek X52 Pro, but you know, it's all I have. So anyway, I hope you guys found this useful, and if you did, please subscribe. Let me know in the comments anything else you'd like to know about how to set things up, and that's it. Thanks for watching.